Welcome to another episode of All Things Lathrop. We have a very special guest joining us today, and that's Susan Dell'Osso. Susan, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you.
I certainly definitely appreciate it. You know, like I said before the podcast, we have a crazy busy schedule. So I want to say thank you for allowing us to talk to you today.
Well, I love the idea of All Things Lathrop, by the way.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yes. And so today's topic, as we've been discussing, is on the history of the city of Lathrop. We sat down with a number of local residents, very strategically starting with Diane Harada, and then also John Smith. And this morning, as I mentioned earlier, sat down with Mark Elliott, and then also finally today, yourself, Susan Dell'Osso. And so the way I see today's podcast is very, very special, not both from a strategic standpoint in terms of the history of Lathrop, because the way I see it, again, so we sat down with Diane Harada, who is the daughter of Tokyo Joe's, the famous Tokyo Joe's, which the establishment is called Joe's Travel Plaza today. And then John Smith, who talked to us, one of the things that he mentioned is about the close-knit nature of the city of Lathrop and his residents. He talked about, how you can just go to your neighbor and ask for, back in the day, a cup of sugar, and they would be more than willing to loan you a cup of sugar. And so, and then Mark Elliott, we sat down with him today, and one of the things that he mentioned, the highlights is really putting thy neighbor first, having that kind of servant mentality as a way to bring everybody together. And so wanted to sit down with you today. Obviously, there's a lot of history with Dell'Osso Farms. As people well know, her last name Dell'Osso. You pass by the freeway and you see that great big sign, Dell'Osso Farms. So there's a lot of history in Dell'Osso Farms in itself. And so I want to cover the history of Dell'Osso Farms, also the history of the city of Lathrop, and then also the history of the concept, if you will, of River Islands as well.
Okay.
And so the way we structure this interview is kind of, talking about history with the local residents, and finally you today. The way I see this interview in a nutshell is there's a little bit of the past, the present, and the future kind of wrapped up in the Dell'Osso name. And so I'm sure there's a lot we can talk about, but we'll try to keep it, a reasonable amount of time, definitely under an hour. So, just let you guys know that it won't be too long, but there's a lot of ground to certainly cover. So on that note, I want to talk to you about the origination or the history of the Dell'Osso Farms.
Okay.
Maybe you could speak to that and shed some light on that.
Yeah, and actually, so I was actually in town when I met my husband, Ron Dell'Osso. So I was developing what was called the Gold Rush City Project.
Yes.
Remember that name? So way back in 1989 when the city first incorporated. And then Ron and I met, and we opened the farm we met, and then together we opened the farm to the public. So prior to that, it was Ron, and he's third generation. My husband's third generation. Okay. His grandfather came from Italy, brought two brothers over. They started growing asparagus.
Okay.
Bought the farm in about 1930, and at that time had no idea that I-5 was going to go through. So to have it be in the best location for an agritourism operation and a family farm that's open to the public, it couldn't have been a better location. But at the time that they bought the property in 1930s, it was a very sophisticated horse ranch. So you see those red brick silos?
Yes.
And it says saddle horses for sale?
Yes.
So it was a ranch and a cattle farm that basically they bought, and then they turned it into a row crop farm and grew asparagus.
Okay.
And my father-in-law took it over from my grandfather. So that was Alfredo. Rudy took it over from Alfredo. And then when my husband was about 25, he took it over from his dad and ran it. Well, he grew everything. He grew sweet corn, he grew tomatoes, he grew everything. And when we met in the early 90s, we decided it was time to open it to the public. So Ron always had an idea that he wanted to have a corn maze and kind of bring the public into the farming business. So our first corn maze was in 1997. And we actually approached the Tracy Boys and Girls Club at the time and said, okay, Tracy Boys and Girls Club, if you guys provide the labor to run it, we will build it, we will market it, we will take care of all the finances, and we'll split the profit 50-50. So we opened it like that. We were only open during the day. And we we did well. And so after about 2 years, we signed a 5-year lease with Tracy Boys and Girls Club. And Tracy, by the way, is because Lathrop, you're in the city of Lathrop, but my husband went to school in Tracy, and Tracy was kind of the town because Lathrop didn't incorporate till 1989.
Yeah.
And then after 1 year of a 5-year deal, Tracy Boys and Girls Club came to us and said, I'm sorry, but we can't do this anymore. We just don't have the labor. So at the time, we was beginning to be a real business. We said, oh, that's great. So sorry, we broke that relationship. And then we went to our local nonprofits. And so we brought in the Boys and Girls Clubs. We brought in the Boy Scouts. We brought in the Rotary Club. We brought in a lot of different groups and basically ran it with a lot of volunteer labor for a number of years until it just got too big. And then as it got bigger, we had to hire our own cashiers and kind of our own staff people to run it. But we still do have a lot of volunteers working there. Rotary in particular spends a lot of time every October with us. So
Got it.
yeah. So, and it's a labor of love. I mean, we brought family members back, and my brother-in-law, sister-in-law, 2 sister-in-laws are involved, our kids are involved.
Yeah.
And at one point, when we had all those volunteers, you could basically come in on a Saturday and you see the mayor driving the train and the planning commission chair driving the hay.
I've seen some pictures.
Yeah. So it's been great, and it's grown, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think it's become a tradition that people have grown to love.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we try to keep adding new things, and we try to keep the farming history really strong. So every time we add a new attraction, we try to work it around, well, this is what we did as kids. So as kids, we used to, jump on piles of hay. Therefore, now I use jumping on a jumping pillow kind of thing. So I'm trying to tie the history back.
So it was about 1997 you said that the whole
First
thing got
moved to
started.
97, yeah.
And so the drive, if I heard you correctly, was more of trying to get the community involved and connected.
Yeah. So it was kind of a combination of things. 'Cause family farming is pretty tough. There's, as things have progressed, the cost of pesticides, the availability of labor, it's very difficult. You finance basically you leverage your whole entire assets every single year and try to grow something that makes sense. Is it sweet corn this year, or is it tomatoes? Tomatoes are hard because you're doing a contract with cannery, and what if that doesn't work out? And so it's always very dicey to be a small family farm. I think you see in California a lot more corporate farms now.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, so it was a way to keep the farm going. So for a long time we did both. We were farming and had the public come in. Then we've got less and less farming, although recently we added some cherry trees, and we planted those about 6 years ago. So this will be our second year of You Pick Cherries, and that's been a great thing to keep the farm going as well. So
Got it.
yeah.
So what new developments? I know you guys are, I think, pretty much every year, maybe it's every year. You guys open up the farm, and you have like zip line and like the newest within the past, I don't know, maybe 5 years or so, the snow tubing big hill.
Yeah. So in 2009 we opened Christmas. So 97 we opened for October. 2009 we opened Christmas, and we had let's see, I'm past tense here. Sorry. Had a snow tubing hill. We bought an ice skating rink. We had a drive-through light show. We had Santa in the country store. We had all sorts of things. And then COVID hit. So we were able to open in October 2020 because just by the skin of our teeth, we got a special dispensation from the state.
Oh, I
So, we had to have people wear masks. We had to have social distancing.
So you guys
Very
were a lot of strict guidelines.
a lot of strict guidelines. And invariably, we have a lot of the people who work for us are residents here in Lathrop. But so I won't single out any names. Sure. Invariably, one of our key staff members who runs Snow Hill, that's what we call it, she'd always get a cold. She'd get a cold. And so if she got a cold, her team of 12 people who work at Snow Hill would have to be quarantined. So what do? So during COVID 2020, there was no way that we could open in December, because there's no way that we pre-sell tickets and spots and when you can come down the hill. So we couldn't do it because you could have a whole team disappear and you can't replace them with another team that can push people through the snow.
Yeah.
So 2020 we didn't open, and Christmas 2021 it was the exact same circumstances where there's quarantine required. So this last year in 22, with COVID's, none of us say been totally gone, and we probably wouldn't have had to do the quarantines, but it just became a little bit dicey to try to open it again. So we're still debating the future of whether we bring that back. But we didn't do it this year. 2 years ago, we couldn't do it during Cuddle, but this last year, it was more of a choice.
Got it. So you mentioned cherry trees. Are there any, are the new developments or anything you guys are going to put out when the next time you guys?
So in October. So last year we did something called Tiny Town. Did you get to that?
I don't believe so.
So
No, forgive me.
so adorable. So what we did is we always try to add a new attraction. This was a really big one. So we had about 12 little buildings made. And when I say little buildings, you and I could stoop down and go into the buildings, but for 5-year-olds they could just run right in, and the door height's perfect for them.
Correct.
And each one of these buildings, it could be a grocery store, so it could have a little cart and a little scanner and little groceries. And then next door is the bank, and there was money that they put in the vault, and people could get stuck in jail. And so anyway, 12 different buildings that had different themes for the kids to play in.
Okay.
And then every hour we would have a parade. So, and it was basically put the buildings around a little street that had a town hall in it. And so we'd have the mayor, the quote unquote mayor, call everyone, okay, the parade's about to start.
Yeah.
And they'd get all the little kids who wanted to be involved in the parade. We'd go behind the stage and give some drums to do, and give some, ropes to twirl, and give some stick ponies to ride, and basically did about a 15-minute parade every hour. And it was so darn cute. You couldn't, it added about, people stay about 4.5 hours at the farm, and it added an additional hour.
Oh, so that's interesting. So you obviously, having said that, you track a lot of the metrics then obviously.
We do.
Okay.
We do. We have parking people, professional parkers, and CHP has to direct traffic on the busy days.
Okay.
Yeah, because we have a lot of people coming off the freeway. And so our parking professionals notice, the turnaround time about, okay, well, that part of the parking lot we parked, we can come back to it in 4 hours, or whatever it happens to be. So I think that was a pretty good metric of determining how long.
Yeah, that's a pretty good amount of time. 4.5 hours. That's really good.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And I tell you, a couple of years ago, it's been about 5 years now.
Yeah.
We used to be able to come into the farm, and you come in for free, and then we pay to do all the different activities, whatever the activity was.
Okay.
And it was chaos, because you would pay to do corn maze here, and you'd pay to do blasters there, and you'd pay in this over there.
Yeah.
So about 5-6 years ago, we went to a one-price entry, and it was a lot of consternation at the beginning, but now you come in and you just go and
It's a lot more streamlined.
It's a lot more streamlined. You don't have to wait in lines. We concentrate where the money's being collected. You can pre-purchase tickets, all of that. We had to do online sales during COVID. That was pretty much the only way to come in.
What would have been some like the biggest attractions that you've noticed that people have constantly assembled around it?
So what's shocking? So we thought last year, if it rains, well, that's not too bad, because it's the corn maze, you can shut it down, right?
Okay.
So who knew that 95% of the people who come through the gate go through the corn maze? I was shocked. I was shocked.
The zip line was that a huge? Really?
That was big, but not as big.
Corn maze is the biggest one.
Unbelievable. It was almost universal that everyone went through there. And we had so many different things, whether it's, even listening to music, or now doing the parades, or pirate shows, or we have pig races, or we have little speedway bicycles. People do everything, but you can't do it all.
Got it.
So, but I was really surprised to find out that the overwhelming majority of people actually went through the corn maze. And we did that by clicking them. And I know how to front gate, and I know how many people went to the corn maze.
Yeah, I was watching a video last night where I forget what year it was, but you guys had designed the corn maze, looking from the top down.
Yeah.
Like NASA, basically.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. So do you guys switch it up every few years, or?
We should switch it up every year.
Every year.
Every year, yeah. So it's a different design every year.
Okay.
It used to be, if you can believe this, so the way when we started it was, 97, there wasn't a lot of technology.
Yeah.
We'd get this huge piece of graph paper, and my mother-in-law would draw a design on it, and it would show all the different paths, and it would basically be a design with the maze cut into it. And then each 1-inch square of graph paper, which had 10 lines in each direction, was a 10-foot square on the ground. So we literally would take that graph paper and say, okay, well, row number 1.
Oh, wow.
Row number 30, you need to pull corn between, because we
back to the climbing part.
Maze back, when it's tiny. You don't wait till it's tall. You don't go and cut a maze when it's tall. So we say, okay, row number 30, you have to pull corn from, 15 feet in to 22 feet in, and so
That's a whole lot of playing right there.
all past 9.
That's a whole lot of playing just on paper than actually executing in the field.
Oh yeah, and then out in the field.
That's a
And if you've ever been in the middle of a corn maze, and if you don't have good berries, it's like you have
Right.
no idea what
Yeah.
can be people who have good berries. So
yeah.
so now it's just GPS, and we hire a company that does it, and they go in and carve it out.
So is there a theme that you guys are going to be going for this coming fall?
We always include a pumpkin. We always include a witch. We always include a lot of the Halloween themes. Last 2 years, we did have the same. It said, Dell'Osso Farms Here We Come. So that whole song, California Gold, if you ever, Dell'Osso or California, Here We Come.
Yeah, I've seen that. It actually just last night.
Yeah, so we did a parody on that for Dell'Osso Farms Here We Come, and so we cut that into the maze, which was kind of fun.
Okay.
But in this next year, what we're bringing back, or what we're bringing in October of 2023, is we're building a gigantic treehouse.
Okay.
So we're working with a company down in Paso Robles to build a big treehouse that has slides and everything that we can do that the kids, everything that we can provide that the kids can do that's low tech makes us happy. Just let them go run.
Yeah.